Hi and welcome to RCKicks. On today's show, well, we're going to be checking out a brand new release from HPI Racing. It's this little fella, the Venture18. Now, this is a fully licensed 1985 Toyota Hilux SR5.
Check out that 4x4. That is hot.
Okay, tackle up.
Someday, Jennifer. Someday.
So we're going to unbox it, check out all the new features and functions on this brand new release, and then we're going to try and see how it drives. Now in the UK currently we're getting storm after storm, so I don't really want to go out in the wet, cold and 35-mile-an-hour rain that's driving sideways. So if that's the case, we'll get out the inside crawler course and see how it handles that. But first of all, let's check out all the bits and pieces that this lovely new kit has got. And the first thing I have to say is the box design. Whoever did the box did a fantastic job. Obviously, they've done the HPI orange and it looks really good. So the actual presentation of the box, super happy with it. But hey, it's not all about the box, it's about what's inside. So let's unbox it and see what you get. Now the release date of this is as of this video, dropping on the same day. Now there's two versions of this. There's a red and a black, brushed and brushless. Length is 275mm, width is 125mm, height is 125mm, and the wheelbase is 155. Now the two motor versions that you get is a 50-turn brushed 180 motor, or you can go brushless with a 1212 3450 kV outrunner motor. Now as for the prices for these two options, what I've been given as this video, but prices might change depending on what country you're in, $149.99 gets you the brushed and $199.99 gets you the brushless. That's US dollars, which by now is probably the same in pounds. Yeah, I know. So before we turn our attentions to the truck, let's just check out the transmitter. Now this is pretty much what you kind of expect from an RTR at this price point. The HPI one is pretty good. I do like the way the dip switches are named on the actual transmitter, not having to refer to a piece of paper that's in the box. All in all, I'm reasonably happy with it. It's kind of what you expect. Nice to see it's got a bit of foam. Battery wise, standard for AA batteries. Also, you get a USB charger, but I'm pretty sure you're going to upgrade to a fast charger. A black and white manual with some exploded diagrams in multiple languages. All pretty standard stuff. Now I know what you're thinking, how does it stack up against some Chinese imports? Well, from a presentation point of view, it's right up there. There's nothing better that's come from China. There's a few options that are pretty much on par with it, so make of that what you will. As for the truck itself, well, the body is gorgeous. Yes, it is an officially licensed truck, which is really nice to see. And I think the detail that they went to with the body, it's got the wing mirrors, the roll bars. It would have been nice if they could have added the spotlights in. Not that you've got to source your own LEDs, but the car will take it. One thing I really like is the way that you open the body. Now it's a pivot point. There's actually a single little clip at the front that you turn 90 degrees, line it up, pop it open, and then you pivot the whole body up. Really like that, nice and simple. The only snag that I found with it is that my version, the actual thing that rotates was quite loose, so it moved left and right a lot. It would have been nice to be a little bit stiffer. I'm pretty sure on the other side is a screw that I could tighten, but to actually get access to that, I'm going to have to take it off the actual body. Now once you lift the body off, you realize there's quite a lot packed into this little tiny RC. It has an RF706 standalone receiver and an RL700 LED controller. It also comes with a high range and low range gearbox, packed with all metal gears. And a snazzy Outrunner 3450 kV motor. Flash. Well, that's all good and well, but how's the creep rate? Well, there you go, on a flat. Not sure what it's going to be like on some obstacles, but we'll find out later in the video. Now the ESC running all this is the FLX 18-2530. Now the LiPo that comes in this is pretty standard stuff. It's a 2S LiPo 600 milliamps held in place with a Velcro strap. As for the tyre compound you get, lovely and soft. Really did like those. I'm looking forward to finding out what the performance is like. One aspect that's a bit of a shame is obviously the scale look. These tyres are huge, so when you put it against the body, they do look a bit oversized, but then that's to give you better performance. But you could swap them out for something that was a bit more scale if that's what you're after. Now the truck comes with steel C-channel chassis rails to keep it nice and stiff.
Matron, stop, I say!
Now it comes with front and rear lights as well as indicators, and you can change the way that they work through the transmitter. You have like low beam, high beam, then you can have it so it has no indicators when you turn, or you can have it the indicators come on when you turn, or you can have it set to hazards. When you brake and reverse, you get a brake light. Now, as this truck has so many additional LED options available to it, it's fantastic that the LED controller unit has the spaces so you just plug it in, run the LED, and you're laughing. As for the oil-filled shocks, they are lovely and soft, which is what you need on something that is so light. The articulation is brilliant on these. Even though the tyres are quite large, it definitely flexes, so I'm really looking forward to see how it goes over the obstacle course. As for the steering servo, totally adequate, powerful enough to be able to lift and move the truck from side to side, but also fast enough. Be interesting to see how it stands up, but straight out of the box, I was reasonably happy with it. Now, if you're expecting to have loads of alloy underneath, I'm sorry you're going to be a bit disappointed. And is that brass bushes I see at the front? And as for the plastic quality, well, it doesn't scream cheap and cheerful. So I think that pretty much covers everything, so it only leaves us one thing left to do. Let's see how it performs. So I'm going to talk you around this lap, and I made it pretty difficult. Now the first obstacle, this one with the hump, the middle hump is the bit that gets the car hung up. And you see in a minute, it lifts the car and then takes the weight off the wheels. What you've got to do is turn the steering to catch the edge, and then that will pull it back off of that high ramp. But it's actually quite a tricky obstacle, that one, as it's really high, so you can beach the actual chassis really easily. Now this is actually quite easy as long as you hit it dead straight. If you're coming in at an angle, you can drop a wheel off and then it will beach. But once you're lined up nice and straight, it's pretty easy. You just got to keep it in a straight line with a tiny little bit of power, and you will be able to get over it. Now I did find with this car that when you come off of it, that little gap that you see where that rear tire is now, it will lock the rear bumper if you're not careful. So what I find I do is I just give it a little bit more power, and before it drops in, it will bump out. As you can see, climbing this, super silky smooth, and you can let off any point and it will just hold the car there, no problems at all. Now this is where it gets really tricky because it's super narrow, this box. So to to straighten up on the box, it's not wide enough to do it. So what you got to do is you got to hang the rear wheel off, let that drop, and then go all the way to the edge of the box, and then drop the front wheel off at the same time, and then shimmy backwards and forwards a few times. This is actually really tricky, and it really shows that how difficult it is, that you've got to be so precise. If you move forward a little bit too much, you'll go topple over. If you go back too much, you will fall backwards. And it's about holding the car just in that sweet spot on the box. And I have to say, with this truck, it was really good. Super impressed with it. Did jerk back a little bit there as there was resistance getting that tyre back up onto the box, but I managed to control it. And then dropping from here down to the second, that's pretty easy. But the problem is you've got to get the car totally rotated to drop onto the most difficult part of the track, which is to drive onto the other truck, the van, because the van suspension is very soft and it rocks from left to right. So if you drive onto it and you're not totally straight on, it will just fall off. And it's pretty high up as well, so it's very difficult, and it's much harder than it looks in this video. So the idea is you've got to move backwards and forwards to line up the rear axle with the van. But as you can see, there's not that much space to do that, so you've got to move onto the van and then off the van and then back again until you get it lined up enough. that you can slowly pull the front up, but the rear is then going to be in line with the van as well. As you can see, the van width is just about enough for you to get the car to sit on it. But if you're slightly off in any direction, it will just roll off straight away. Then you've got to really slowly edge forward, which really gives you the precision that this car offers you. And I'm not sure you can do this with Mini, as that is way harder than it looks. And then drop down onto the last obstacle, which isn't too much of a problem, but you've got to be a bit careful. The edges can catch up under the rear bumper, and then it's done. So as you can see, that was pretty impressive. So what's my finding of the HPI Racing Venture18 1985 Toyota Hilux SR5? Well, looks-wise, I really like it. I think it's really good. The only thing that I kind of would have liked is it's got these extra lamps at the front and the ones on the bar at the top. Would have been really nice if they'd have just added those little LEDs in, because when you turn on the lights, that would be fantastic, as these ones that are on the front and the rear are really good. So that's such a shame, just a little bit more. I would rather have paid the extra £1 or £2 and had those already installed, as I think that would look really nice, as they've done all the wiring inside this really nicely. So to add extra wiring to it, and the only other thing I think they could push it up a little bit more is if they put an actual driver cockpit in it, because the body is so nice. I like what they've done here with this drop bit at the back with the roll cage and the way that it's pivoted at the back with all the bumpers. So I'm being picky here, but all the side steps, yeah, I think you could just take it a little bit more, just push the boat out a little bit more. Overall, it's a really good looking truck, and obviously it's quite an iconic truck. But the performance of it, wow. Well, that motor that's in there, the precision of it. Now, I know you've just seen me driving it, but obviously I edited it up to make it a little bit more interesting. Believe it or not, I drove that whole lap that you've just seen without touching the car once. No mistakes, just drove all the way around. So I'm going to play it to you now, and I'm going to play it really sped up, because obviously I don't want you to just sit here and watch the whole thing again. But I don't think I could get across just how good this little thing is. So we'll play that, and then I'll come back and give you my final thoughts. So there you go, pretty impressive, right? Now my go-to for this kind of scale, as in mini crawlers, was the van that came out, I think it was a year ago. This is FTX Outback Mini X Rock Van. Now this is amazing, this performs brilliantly. Well, this is better. And I think a lot of it comes down to the electronics, and the motor that's in this just gives it that extra bit of precision over the van. But the van performs brilliantly as well. So I now have, instead of my #1, this becomes my #1 best mini crawler. Also, from a looks point of view, it's really nice as well. One thing that is a little bit strange, and I'm sure it's to do with that motor, when you go from moving forward to moving backwards, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like you've got to let the motor spin up a little bit before it will engage. And sometimes when you go into reverse, you've got to be very, very gentle with it, otherwise it can shoot back a little bit. But if you're very precise with it, it will crawl really silky smooth backwards, and the same forwards. So much so that if you actually, you can get it to look like it's almost not moving, but it's slowly turning. And that precision is, yeah, it's definitely got to be down to the motors. But I think HPI did a brilliant job with this. They got the suspension just right, the tyre compounds just right. The servo that's in this seems to be really strong. It's really, really powerful enough to move the truck around, no problems at all. Just before you go, sorry, I forgot to add, if you're going to get one of these, make sure you get the brushless one. Don't get the brushed one. Spend the extra. It's definitely worth it, as that's probably the best part of this truck. So there you go. On that note, thanks very much. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.